Learning is the key to successful investing, and who doesn't want to invest in some way?
Here at L.E.A.R.N Grow Invest, we focus on financial education, all with the aim of sharing our knowledge on personal finance, investing, and building wealth. We do this on the foundation of our faith in God.
If a more holistic approach is what you need, check out our Grow Faith-Based Financial Coaching Program.
Find out more about us at learngrowinvestclub.com
and follow us on all social media platforms at Learn, Grow, Invest.
All right, welcome to this unusual live stream. It's only news like this that can get me to do a stream this late. So we're just gonna go right into the topic and then I'll share my thoughts about it, of course. So I know in a previous Stocks to Watch, we've mentioned Fontana as a stock that we were watching kind of, I think, a year and a half ago, back when they were planning to launch their Portmore location. I must admit that Fontana has been off of my watch list for a while now, right? Maybe probably a year or so. And so when I saw this news, I was like, what does that really mean? But then, of course, thinking about you guys as a community, I'm literally doing this one for you. I'm just saying that, right? So let's get into it, all right? Let me share my screen here. All right, so I'm going to do what I normally do here. I'm going to read through the story, and then I'll talk about what I think it means and what are some of the things I'd be looking for as a shareholder, right? So I'm not a shareholder as at the point of this video. I don't think that's going to change, but who knows? We'll see where things go, all right? So the news is Fontana is acquiring Monarch Pharmacy. Now, if you haven't heard about Monarch Pharmacy, then I mean, I don't know what to tell you. They've been around for a long time, right? And so let's go through the article first. Let's see what things can be said. I have started to research this. So I've spoken to a few persons in media. I've long since tried to interview Fontana. Honestly, I've stopped trying. Now I'm open to an interview should they reach out to me, but I've tried for almost 2 years. So I've stopped trying. And so if an opportunity presents itself, I'm certainly for it, but I try to discern whether or not a company is interested in an interview. Now, this is nothing bad about them, of course, because to run a listed company is a lot of work. CEOs are busy. I completely appreciate that, but I've tried. Right, that's what I'll say. All right. So it says here, Fontana has announced it signed an agreement to acquire Monarch chain of pharmacies from L.E.A.R.N Limited. So in a media release, Fontana said due diligence on the agreement is to begin shortly, and that move could potentially expand its store footprint to 11 locations across the island, right? So the first thing I'm noticing here is saying that due diligence is about to begin, right? So as an investor, you want to pay attention to the things that you see, right? So it says due diligence is about to begin. If you understand how due diligence works, it is a process. It takes some time. You have to look at the books. You have to look at the business model. You have to look at the things that maybe the business came to the table asking for are valid. So if I am purchasing a company and they say the company is worth $10, my due diligence could show that that value is actually more or that value is actually less. Now, if the value is more than they're giving me, I've gotten a deal. I'm awesome. If the value is less, we either need to renegotiate or there needs to be something that is used to bridge the gap, right? So that's why you do due diligence for multiple reasons, of course, but you want to ensure that when you're purchasing something, you're getting what you're expecting, right? So that's what the due diligence is for. It is a process. So I want you to understand and appreciate that this transaction is not going to close tomorrow, right? It's going to take some time. So Monarch has 3 locations at Sovereign Center, Lasusan, I can never pronounce that, Tropical Plaza, and one in Portmore, right? And it says here This acquisition is an important step in our mission to continue growing our brand and providing customers with the best possible healthcare products and services. In additional locations, will strengthen our ability to serve our communities, expand our customer base, and further solidify Fontana Pharmacy as a leading name in pharmacy care in Jamaica, said Ann Chang, right? Now, one of the things that's always had me curious about Fontana is this building out of physical locations, right? So Waterloo, Portmore, I thought the expenditure didn't make sense because you're going in the opposite direction, right? I've said this on a Stocks to Watch before, where you're building out brick and mortar in an era where people are moving away from brick and mortar. So it didn't seem like it made sense at the time. Now an acquisition makes sense because the acquisition now means that you're purchasing something that's already built. So you don't have to invest the same amount of capital to build out locations. Now they will need to rebrand because they'll want to, the Fontana brand is stronger than the Monarch brand, of course. So they would want to build out and rebrand and all of that stuff. I'm sure things like maybe existing relationships, etc. Though I have been hearing that persons have been saying, you know, the Monarch brand has been dying down, right? So that may also, of course, impact how much they ultimately pay for it, because it's not like it's a growing brand, it's actually a dying brand. So that may give them the opportunity to get a great price. They just rebrand, it now becomes Fontana, and it's this great thing for them, right? So it says, meanwhile, Monarch Pharmacy's Bruce, okay, I didn't even notice his name, right? So it's the family. That makes sense now. Said after 35 years in the pharmacy business, the family has decided to streamline their operations and focus on retail, food, and property development, right? When I saw this, I thought, again, this is sometimes where persons may see somebody selling a company to do something else, they think it's a bad thing. For them, if the pharmacy business was not growing for them, it either means that it wasn't a strength for them, meaning, I think when you think of the name Lasushan or Lasusan, I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right, but you're thinking of maybe other things, right? So not necessarily a pharmacy or the Monarch brand or something like that. So for them to focus on retail, food, and property development, that's likely a strength for them. So they see if they get this capital, reinvest it there, it's able to be more profitable for them, whereas Fontana can take it, which is known as a strong brand in terms of the pharmacy space and maybe other things that they provide. It will be a benefit for them. So it's win-win just the same, right? So because of our strong relationship with Ann Chang and Ray L.E.A.R.N, I'm bad with names, guys. We're extremely pleased that Fontana Pharmacy is acquiring our chain of pharmacies. Yeah, Christopher, I said the Shan, but look how it's spelled. It's L-O-S-H-U-S-A-N. So I know in Jamaica we say Lasushan, but there's no H at the last S. So that's why I'm kind of weird, but I'll figure it out, right? So it's saying here that and are confident they will continue the tradition of retail pharmacy excellence that Monarch started over 3 decades ago, right? And I do remember growing up, you know, visiting their pharmacies, etc., right? So Fontana says it anticipates closing the transaction during the 3rd quarter for them. That would be January to March, so the quarter that we're in now, with operational changes and integration into its existing network through the rest of the year. So they're going to complete the transaction in the 1st quarter. They're going to take time to integrate. So just like you saw with the MailPack and MyCart, they had to take some time to integrate, because now we have to, the easy part is the transaction. The hard part is going through, because now when you go through, you're seeing, well, what point of sale are they using? What were the processes? Are you going to keep the same staff? Are you going to keep the same vendors? Like, so many things you have to go through and rework. It's a lot of overhead to do an acquisition. It sounds nice in the news, but it's a lot of work, right? So it will take some time. So what I wanted to point out here again is that the results or the fruit of an acquisition is not always immediate. It depends on the type of acquisition, of course. Now, if this again was a growing brand, then you could say, well, hey, they're gonna add X amount in profits. To me, this doesn't appear to be an immediate jump for Fontana. If anything, it's going to be an immediate cost, because we'll get to, how they might pay for it later. But then it's going to be something that is going to cost them some time to integrate, to work things out before they see the ROI from it. All right. So I think that's it. I don't think there's anything else. Now, I did want to go to Fontana, the stock itself, because as I said, it's been off of my watch list for a while. But and you've noticed it's been going down, right? So so year to date, month to date, everything is down, right? In the last 52 weeks, it was as high as $10. It's been as low as $7.20, right? So they didn't have an impressive year last year in terms of the numbers, right? So let me see if I can go to their last quarterly financials, see what they're doing right now. But I'm wondering if I should maybe save this, because I wanted to have this video be short, right? So I'm just gonna look at their P&L and see. But I do know that they're coming off of their best quarter, which would be the December quarter. So if anything, that's going to be something good for them. So it says here, revenue for the quarter was $2 billion, representing an increase of 16.2% over the $1.78 billion for the corresponding quarter. Operating profit grew by 26.9%, going from 80 million to 102, despite the income tax liabilities. Net profit for the quarter was 60.5 million, or 1.5% less, right? So revenues are up 16%, but net profit is still down, right? So they saw an increased revenues in their location, including their newest one in Portmore, which has largely maintained their break-even monthly analysis, right? Note those words, right? So transaction counts, average spend, and prescription counts continue to show month-over-month gains as we grow our footprint in St. Catherine. So cost of sales increase, it's been happening for everybody, and their efforts to capitalize on economies of scale within their procurement and inventory resulted in a higher gross margin, up 37%, well, 37.5%, up from 33.9%, right? So they've been listed for 5 years, so that means they have the 50% thing there. Let me go straight to the outlook here. So it says at the end of this quarter, they're far advanced in the development and adaptation of two efficiency tools, a point-of-sale system. So this point-of-sale system may be now used at the Monarch locations, accommodating patient profile access across all stores. That would be awesome. And a new integrated HR software. So they continue to invest in technology to improve their efficiency, because when you have a brick and mortar operations, it's all about efficiency, right? That's how you're able to squeeze out more profit. It has to be about efficiency, because you have so much overhead costs, which is why I've always thought that they could go into more of like an e-commerce model or a digital model, where instead of increasing locations, they focus on growing their online presence. I don't know if that's something that they do now, but I thought it would make sense for them to focus more digitally, because their costs are going to increase. With raw materials costing more, with staff costs being more, with their taxes continually going, what I saw was a struggle to maintain the same profitability that they might have started out with. Because if you remember the years of the pandemic, it would have been awesome for them, because now with there being a challenge in terms of persons maybe ordering from overseas, they might have seen a boom. But that certainly has changed. And with the fact that persons can order so easily online, it's just an overall challenge, right? So at 7 stores strong, of course, you saw that that number would change to 11, right? So the hope that I see for them is if they can get to enough locations, then they can really benefit from economies of scale in terms of purchasing power, because that's essentially the Walmart model, where they have so many locations, they order so much quantity. Same for the PriceSmart model, where because their buying power is so enormous, they can get better terms from creditors, they can get better prices, and so they have better margins, right? Because that's what, for example, separates a company like PriceSmart. They can sell and match any price because of the price they get it at, because they're ordering maybe thousands of something versus a normal retail store that probably order a dozen or two, right? All right, so I wanted to look at the numbers. So revenues for this is first quarter. So they're going to get their second quarter, which I do expect again to be their best quarter for the year, because that's the December quarter. So the next, okay, thank you, Renee. Renee is saying that they maintained online ordering and curbside pickup post COVID-19. Okay, cool. So it would be good to see what type of sales happen from that side of the business. Sean, I don't consider Fontana a dividend stock, so I'm not even going to check dividends, right? I don't think they generate enough profit to pay a healthy dividend, right? So it says here, I'm just going straight to profitability here. Note the finance costs have gone up, right? So 65 million versus 52 million, and they have to finance the acquisition somehow, whether through cash, whether through shares. I don't know, right? I don't know if I'd call it a growth stock either right now. It's kind of interesting. I don't know. I'd have to kind of find a way to qualify it. I have to find a way to qualify it. I'm not sure if I'd consider it a growth stock anymore, but it's not. I don't know. I need to think about it, Sean. I don't know. I don't know. I think the potential for Justina, I don't know if I can call it value either, because value to me is I guess it's growth, because it can be a growth stock but not living up to expectation. I guess so. Right? But note that finance cost, right? So depending on how they choose to finance that the acquisition, there are a couple of ways to finance it, right? They can do an APO, they can raise debt, they can issue shares. There are many ways to finance an acquisition, so we have to wait to see that information coming out. Shareholders would need to know at some point. It's gonna have to be reported on what the cost of the acquisition was, because you have to see it on the financials. So it's not like something that they're gonna withhold for too long. This finance cost would be a concern for me, because they would have invested in, for example, the new locations that they're probably paying down and so forth. Profit before taxation was 72 million. Net profit for the period is 60. Just slightly lower than where it was last year, but there was no growth, right? That's a part to focus on. Now, in terms of cash and cash equivalents, that's showing $1 billion. So again, we're not sure what the cost of the acquisition will be, so we're not sure what that will look like. Now, it's so interesting, because right now I'm in talks with somebody to acquire something from them. So this process of valuation is kind of fresh in my mind. And so it would be really interesting to determine what the 3 locations are valued, because there are a lot of ways to quantify the value, right? And I'm assuming that they're owning maybe like, I don't know if, well, I'm assuming that the family owned the locations, meaning the real estate as well. So I don't know if that will be a part of the deal, or it's just a physical location to actually take them over. That is still to be discussed. So we'll see, right? So cash and cash equivalents is 1 billion. I'm not sure how much you'd value, because you're valuing the brand, the inventory, the client list. There are lots of things that can add up to the value. And then if any underlying real estate or physical assets are there, that would need to be valued as well. All right. So I think that would be it in terms of just waiting to see the details that come out. But just my initial thoughts, it makes sense for them because it's a faster potential way to grow. Now the locations are interesting because we have to see. So for example, I haven't seen much traffic, for example, in Tropical Plaza anymore. It just seemed like not heavy with foot traffic. But that's how I view like just retail in general in Jamaica, right? I personally, the only thing I go into a place to buy in Jamaica anymore is probably food, right? Almost everything that we buy, we either go to Price Smart or we go to L.E.A.R.N, and then it's online. Now, there are persons who are loyal to the Fontana brand. I remember when Julian Morrison was here, he said, you know, Fontana has a significant loyalty in the market, right? So that's important. There are persons who will go like it's a weekly trip or routine for them. That means a lot, right? I know somebody like Renee would probably go a lot more if she could, but I don't know what that means in terms of how that translates, right? Because again, with costs increasing, I just think that investing in more physical locations maybe isn't the way to go. But it's if the locations are already there, the brand is not doing so well, they can now take it over, revamp it, increase their footprint. It makes sense, right? It makes sense for them. So I think it's an excellent move in terms of that. I think the price is going to be important. I think the way they choose to finance it is going to be important. Do I expect to see movement in the share price because of the acquisition? Maybe, right? It's interesting to see how it will trade tomorrow. So maybe I'll cover it because I am planning to go live in our community tomorrow. So maybe I'll talk about it there. So it would be interesting to see how it trades. Now it's been down for a while. So if it gets a short-term bump, I would not be surprised. It's down to 779, and yeah, so maybe as it shows, like, you know, 3% down year to date. So we'll see. So Chris says that I see Fontana as a $10 to $12 stock, depending on what, Christopher? What is that $10 to $12 based off, right? That would be my question. So Fontana seems to have a strong balance sheet for sure, right? With lots of cash. So the cash is definitely noticeable. They also have loyal customers and investors. Now the loyal customers is where I'm focused on, not so much the loyal investors, right? But I do get your point, right? The sentiment in general is typically strong for them. So it is that strong sentiment that makes me feel like you could see some short-term movement from this news, because it is good news, right? A lot of things left to be disclosed, but at least just from face value, it's certainly good for them, right? Christopher say it has a good loyal fan base like my girlfriend. I mean, Fontana does a great job with physical locations, so I expect to see transformation. It would be great because I had to go into Monarch for something recently. I went to the Sagicor Bank in Tropical and I had to go to Monarch for something, and I went in there and I was like, I did not recognize this place. I used to buy magazines from that same pharmacy. I don't remember if it was always called Monarch, but I used to buy these Kung Fu magazines or business magazines, like I don't remember what they're called now. But But I used to love that store, that pharmacy, because I could get all my magazines there. Like Christmas time, that's a place that I'm going to buy gifts for Renee and stuff like that. When I used to buy Christmas gifts, yeah. Anyway, so let's see. I think they have a great opportunity. So it doesn't add them to the watch list for me, but I think it's certainly good news for them. And the more that I'm thinking about it, you'll likely see some movement in the short term, for sure. So Christopher, if you bought at 875, I'd look out. You probably break even very soon, right? Let me see. Tevi, I hope you're still here. Alavane says, ready and waiting. Guys, I must apologize for changing the time of the stream. I had class. Class was really good. And I stayed back and spoke to my teacher for a little bit because I needed some help with something. And so I couldn't miss the opportunity. All right. So I'm going to close the stream here. I don't see any questions that I need to answer. Sean says, Fontana feels like one of those stocks that should be up like their Lasco, but just can't seem to find the legs to move. No, I think it's simply they have not. So as I said, they were on my watch list. I was a shareholder. I was expecting them to be further ahead, but personally, it just seemed like they weren't. I think their expenses got a little bit challenging. And so, as I said, I was always kind of concerned because of the move that they seem to be going in the opposite direction. But I mean, they have great sentiment, can do a lot for you, right? If you were to guess, why do you think the prices are moving? I mean, I don't know, right? When a stock moves off my watch list, it's not something I'm going to track closely. I remember the few reports coming out after the Portmore location was in place, and I didn't see what I was expecting. So same like you, Troyan, I'm waiting for the first few reports to see what the impact is like. That's the thing. So I'm waiting to see the impact. And that's why I say it depends on the cost. It depends on what comes with the deal. It depends on what their cost will be to revamp the location. So to me, you're going to be waiting maybe 6 months to a year to see the impact on the balance sheet. In the short term, you may see an impact in terms of their cost because they have to pay for it. So I don't know if that will necessarily mean good reports. Now, the Q2 report for December, I think, will be a good report. So maybe that news of that report that's coming out in a couple of weeks, along with the news of the acquisition, may actually do well for the stock price in the short term, but it may, find itself back to a certain place after. So, I think if you're already a shareholder, I would be, expectant. I think if you're not a shareholder, I think the waiting and see is probably the approach that persons on the outside will take. And I mean, of course, everybody's entitled to do what they're doing. Okay, so I think that's it. So I agree here. I really think that I'd love to see more of a digital push. I'd love to see more of covering the areas that they're not in. So for example, let's say they partner with like a Quick Cart or a 7Crave to start doing maybe like active deliveries, or maybe partnering with a chain of, let's say they partner with like a medical location to start delivering prescriptions, like something like that. I think would be great. So let's say they partner with like even an MD link or just some partnership to get them reaching customers in the areas that they don't exist. Because it's physical locations, people have to go to them. I think that just is a great impact to business, right? What would I say is 3 weaknesses you'd like to see them improve on? Well, I've only been saying it for the last 30 minutes. The maximization of the digital just e-commerce business. The next, I'd want to see expenses managed a little better. And the third would be Well, I don't think there's a third. Those are my two concerns with them. Those are my only two concerns. But when you think as so if I'm them, thinking about it again, the move makes perfect sense. If you're in the business, you're thinking long term, right? Most CEOs won't say this, but they're all thinking long term, no matter what they do in the short term, because they're thinking of the longevity of the brand. This helps the longevity of the brand because they're now able to increase their footprint by more than 50%. They're going from 7 to 11 stores, right? That's more than half the number of stores added. That is a good thing. There's no downside to that, right? So I would say it will help the brand now, because the company is profitable, even though the profits are less. They're still profitable. So 60 million profit is still 60 million. It's not like they're doing negative profit or anything like that. So they're still a profitable company. It's more of if I think about them as a growth stock, then they would be underperforming. If I think about them as I guess more of a value stock, then it's more giving them an opportunity to do something more in the medium to long term. I certainly don't think of them as a dividend stock because of the dividends that they pay. Let me look at that real quick. So that I'm not seeing a dividend for last year, but I'm also seeing it repeat a million times. So JC probably has this wrong, right? You notice 23, 12, 8, all of this, right? So it annoys me when this happens, but this is not correct, right? So dividend consideration was last for June. Let me see the last dividend that I paid. I paid a dividend here of 25 cents in June last year. And so they at least paid that last year. So I don't know what the dividend yield is, right? Justina said, not at all, calculated that already. Guys, I love that. I love that my community gets that. You calculate the dividend yield, because if it's not higher than a certain amount, it's not a dividend stock, right? You paying a 1% or a 0.5% dividend doesn't make you a dividend stock, right? All right, so I think I've said everything I have to say here. Congratulations, Fontana, and its shareholders. If you're watching from the Fontana team, I would appreciate an interview if that's at all possible. And all the best to shareholders. We will certainly see how things go over the next few weeks. And so, yeah, I'll see you in the next one.
Learning is the key to successful investing. And who doesn't want to invest in some way?
Here at L.E.A.R.N. Grow Invest, we focus on financial education, all with the aim of sharing our knowledge on personal finance, investing, and building wealth. We do this on the foundation of our faith in God.
If a more holistic approach is what you need, check out our Grow Faith-based financial coaching program.
Find out more about us at learngrowinvestclub.com
and follow us on all social media platforms at Learn, Grow, Invest.